It was a quiet Tuesday evening in the small hamlet of Bellevue when Marco Donnelly, the proud but volatile owner of La Cucinabella, first saw the couple who would flip his life upside down. The vast dining area, soft candlelight dancing on terracotta tiles, and the quiet hum of a piano drifting from the corner all added to the restaurant's ambience. Marco, recognized for his high standards and no-nonsense management, took great care in every aspect of his business. His life revolved on the restaurant, where every dish was a labor of love, every reservation a mark of respect, and every customer a mirror of his personality. However, that night, a strange disturbance would push him to thaw even his strongest resolve. As the evening began, the restaurant was alive with the murmur of pleased conversations and the clink of wine glasses. Marco glided gracefully between tables, greeting his regular customers with an engaging smile. His employees, Sophia, a cheerful server with a warm heart, and Johnny, a young sous chef who aspired to culinary stardom, exuded a sense of camaraderie that made any difficulty seem surmountable, or at least tolerable. La Cucinabella was more than simply a business, it was a family, an ever-changing tapestry of lives linked by the threads of passion and determination. Marco could not have predicted the disturbance that was going to upend the delicate balance he had so carefully maintained. In the midst of the tranquility, the entrance bell rang, and the door swung open with a sharp click of polished brass. Two strangers entered with quick, confident strides. The male wore a fitted suit that suggested money and elegance, whilst the woman conveyed mystery with her exquisite attire and understated strong presence. Their gazes met Marco's as they swept the room with an intensity that contradicted the friendly atmosphere. Something about the way they handled themselves, a serene assurance coupled with an unsaid defiance, caused Marco to hesitate in his welcoming duties. Unbeknownst to him, these outsiders would shake his core views about status, reputation, and the art of hospitality. The couple was seated at a remote corner table, carefully chosen to provide solitude yet remaining central enough to communicate their significance. As Marco approached with menus in hand, a subtle tension permeated the room. Sophia, who had served innumerable couples over the years, said, "There's an atmosphere around them. A sort of peril, or even a hidden story. I've never seen anyone like them." Marco's eyes furrowed in thought. He entered the table with a pleasant but moderate demeanor, welcoming everyone warmly as he had practiced. "Good evening, and welcome to La Cucinabella. I'm Marco, the owner. May I recommend something unique for tonight?" His voice, steady and pleasant to the ear, did little to ease the subtle sensation of foreboding that hung in the air. The man nodded politely, but the woman fixed him with a measured glare, as if she had long ago decided that their presence would be remembered. Their initial orders were straightforward, an appetizer, a main course, and a glass of superb red wine each. While this may have been typical protocol for many nights, tonight the air was packed with anticipation. Something unexpected occurred minutes later, when the orders were relayed to the kitchen. The couple's gazes moved and words were exchanged, as if they were planning something. In a corner of the restaurant, hidden from the casual viewer, a shadow of mystery lengthened with each passing minute. Marco kept a cautious, watchful eye on the pair while preparing their lunch. Their discourse, however muffled by the ambient music, had overtones of haste and strained regard for the niceties of their surroundings. The man's gaze flickered sometimes to the wall clock, an almost imperceptible indication to Marco of his growing discomfort with their lengthy stillness. His constant attention to time and schedule made him especially sensitive to delays. "A meal should be an experience, not a drudgery," he murmured as he checked his watch for the third time that evening. Meanwhile, the woman's delicate features exhibited momentary moments of concern, as if she was debating whether to speak up or remain silent, maintaining an enigma that only added to the mystery surrounding their identities. Johnny, the eager kitchen assistant, meticulously prepared the couple's special dish. However, even in the domain of culinary competence, an unusual catastrophe struck the evening. A tiny seasoning discrepancy, caused by an unexpected diversion, resulted in the sauce tasting unusually bitter. Johnny's heart sunk as he discovered his error, for he prided himself on perfection. Nonetheless, he pushed on and politely prepared the dish, concealing his anxiety with a fake smile. Marco, who oversaw the final plating, trusted Johnny's intuition, believing in the young chef's ability. However, once the food arrived at the table, the couple and Marco realized that something was wrong. The man's face distorted in an expression of controlled rage and disappointment. "This isn't what I expected," he said frankly, returning the platter to the server. His tone was free of superfluous embellishments, leaving no opportunity for bargaining. The woman felt the sting of the faulty presentation, but she kept mute, her eyes darting with contradictory feelings. Marco hurried to their table, remorseful and sincere. "I sincerely apologize for this mistake. We take great pleasure in our meals, and I promise you that this is not our usual quality," he stated, his voice full of earnestness. However, the couple's response was far less forgiving than Marco had imagined. "Your apologies mean nothing when the product is inherently flawed," the man said, his voice calm but firm. "We expected perfection, and you delivered mediocrity." His comment struck Marco as a blow to his pride. The woman's eyes met his for a brief period, and he felt a sense of regret, as if a secret truth was about to be revealed. But before any additional talk could begin, the man abruptly rose up and motioned for the couple's urgent evacuation from the premises. In a fit of rage and wounded pride, Marco, who had just regained his composure, yelled, "If you are not happy, you are free to leave. We will not accept disrespect here." The mood became tight and thick with unsaid threats. The couple, who had previously been calm and cool, suddenly appeared ready to accept an unsaid challenge. They rose from their seats with the grace of a couple used to power and influence, their manner a mix of irritation and quiet determination. Marco made the decision in an impetuous attempt to preserve the integrity of his business. "Out you go," he said, his voice ringing ominously through the now quiet dining room. The guests, who had observed the unexpected confrontation with wide eyes, murmured amongst themselves, the rumor mill already in motion. As the pair hurried quickly toward the exit, a heavy cloud of finality settled over the eatery. Marco was reassured that he had done the right thing by upholding his high standards. However, what happened in the quiet regions immediately beyond the restaurant's door was nothing short of extraordinary. Moments after the pair went outside, a sleek black automobile approached, its polished chrome reflecting the dim streetlight. Marco, who had been watching the entire episode from his vantage point at the bar, took note of the car's presence. His chest constricted as he noticed the unmistakable logo imprinted on the side of the vehicle, a symbol he knew all too well. The couple, now in the protective embrace of their luxury sedan, slipped inside and drove away, leaving a trail of bewildered whispers and unanswered questions. In the days that followed, Marco's memories of that tragic night began to haunt him. His mind whirled around the situation, unable to shake the impression that something important had been neglected. Simmering discontent and concern about his decision spread among his workforce, resulting in a sense of dread. Sophia, whose gentle heart looked past the stringent standards of decorum, was especially troubled as she described the incident to a close friend. Marco acted so impulsively, without ever considering the reasons behind their actions, Sophia bemoaned one morning. "There's something off about that couple, we need to understand who they were and what brought them to our restaurant." Despite his initial confidence, Marco became plagued by self-doubt. The memory of their piercing eyes and the furtive manner they exchanged looks was unforgettable. He spent many nights studying over the restaurant's CCTV footage, looking for some sign of mischief or malice that could explain his hasty action. The shaky recordings revealed little more than courteous gestures, but the tension remained obvious. He rewatched every scene, trying to analyze their faces and small movements. Was the man's disappointment actually about the dinner, or was it a cover for something far more serious? And why did the woman appear to express volumes of wordless emotions in such brief moments? As the days passed into weeks, persistent media questions began to emerge. Local newspapers, always on the lookout for scandals and human interest stories, seized on the situation, weaving a story of cruelty and injustice. The restaurant owner expels mysterious couple. The headlines screamed, causing a frenzy among the townspeople. Even the more distinguished guests of La Cucina Bella felt obligated to take sides, with some backing Marco as a defender of tradition and excellent culinary standards, while others condemned him as a tyrant indifferent to life's delicate dramas. Marco's inner calm was destroyed during these difficult times. His once impeccable reputation was now shrouded in suspicion, and each day brought a new set of inquiries that he couldn't answer or dismiss. On one of these nervous mornings, an unexpected visitor appeared at the café, unannounced and dressed in humility. A middle-aged woman approached Marco slowly, clothed in plain clothes and carrying only a little, worn leather bag. "Signore Donnelly," she said softly, her voice tinged with reverence and seriousness, "I believe you have a debt to settle with me." Marco, taken aback by her enigmatic words, motioned her to a quiet area of the business. Once seated, she recounted the events of that fateful night like a well-rehearsed story. "My name is Emilia Rossi," she stated, her gaze fixed and steadfast. "I am the wife of a man with a prominent position in the government, whose actions influence the lives of many. I am also the ex-wife of someone who used to work with you." The mention of the name, Donnelly, jogged Marco's memory. In his early days, he employed a man named Alessandro, who left under terrible circumstances. However, the relationship between Alessandro's troubled departure and this enigmatic Emilia was veiled in mystery. "Signora Rossi, what do you mean? How am I obligated to you?" Marco inquired, his own memories tinged with anxiety and curiosity. Emilia's eyes softened as she recognized Marco's genuine confusion. "You see, Mr. Donnelly, the couple you kicked out was not an ordinary couple. They were members of a covert organization that has long been interested in working behind the scenes for the common good. The guy you saw, Lucio, is my brother, a man who has dedicated his life to exposing corruption and injustice at the highest levels of power. And the woman, whose eyes held secrets of immeasurable pain and fortitude, is an intelligence agent working under the pseudonym Selina. They were not there for a lunch, but on a mission that may have changed the path of our country's future." Marco's mind, still spinning from the news, struggled to process the gravity of Emilia's comments. The image of the pair, carelessly put out by his own hand, became a tapestry woven with threads of heroism, sacrifice, and covert valor. "Do you mean that by expelling them, I may have unwittingly interfered with an issue of national importance?" Marco urged, his voice heavy with regret, as if attempting to realize the ramifications of his unintentional intervention. Emilia nodded gravely. "Yes, Mr. Donnelly. Leaders in the underworld of bureaucratic deception and covert objectives have long seen acts of rebellion against their activities as a challenge to their authority. Lucio and Selina were on the point of revealing critical information that could have brought down a crooked network. While your decision to preserve the sanctity of your business is understandable, it has unexpected repercussions. However, I must say that, rather than being angry, I have no ill will towards you, only a strong desire to resolve this matter before it spirals out of control." The revelation rushed through Marco's veins, instilling a deep drive to redeem the evil he had inadvertently done. The thought that a single act of fury on his side had stifled efforts to uncover systematic injustice was heartbreaking. "Signora Rossi, please instruct me on how I can make amends," Marco asked, his tone sincere. Emilia's response was measured and calm, a guiding light across the darker hallways of his shame. First, she began slowly, "You must understand that the route to atonement does not consist in mere apologies or public announcements, but in active engagement in the cause for which these brave souls gave up their privacy. I need your assistance in securing the documentation they were looking for. There is a trove of knowledge stashed away in a secure location in your town, which has been protected for years by the very organization they represent. You, with access to certain regions of the town via the restaurant's community network, can help promote communication between them and those wielding power from behind the scenes." Marco's heart pounded in his chest as Emilia described the mission ahead. His beloved eatery had become an unwilling pawn in a game of espionage and political intrigue. However, beneath the layers of intricacy lies a possibility for redemption, not only for himself, but also for his beloved institution. Marco chose to embark on this risky voyage with the goal of changing the trajectory of previous events. He collected Sophia and Johnny in the restaurant's back door, away from the press and hungry customers. "I made a grave mistake," he said quietly. "And, while the rest of the world may regard me as a petty man for making a small mistake, I now realize that my actions have far-reaching consequences. I ask for your assistance because I cannot right this mistake on my own." Sophia's eyes widened with apprehension and loyalty. "Marco, you created this place with your heart and soul. We're available if you need us. We may not understand everything, but together, we can find a way out of this mess." Johnny, the silent watcher with as much conviction as his master, nodded earnestly. "Whatever it takes, I'm with you," he stated softly. Their partnership was formed not only out of obligation to a friend, but also out of a common belief in the greater good, which transcended the mundane problems of day-to-day life. Over the next few weeks, Marco's evening routine switched from hosting delighted customers to surreptitiously meeting with Amelia's loyal supporters. In clandestine meetings in smoke-filled back rooms and deserted warehouses on the outskirts of Bellevue, he began piecing together the secret jigsaw of the records that were now so badly wanted. The enigmatic strangers, the famed Lucio and the elusive Selina, were a continuous presence in the background of these gatherings, their identities meticulously concealed by layers of secrecy designed to keep them safe from prying eyes. Lucio, with his dominating presence and unwavering determination, presented updates in hushed tones, presenting vivid visions of threats and betrayals coming from the highest echelons of government. Selina, graceful yet mysterious, methodically explained her secret actions, as well as the existence of hidden files containing evidence of financial malfeasance, falsified election results, and conspiracy among wealthy elites who thought they were above scrutiny. The seriousness of the findings prompted Marco and his colleagues to take calculated risks. Late one night, when the moon hung low in the sky like a vigilant guardian, Sophia and Johnny accompanied Marco on a covert operation to retrieve the buried documents. Their destination was an abandoned safe house on the outskirts of town, long forgotten by the officials who used to run it. The group made their way through tight, convoluted streets, avoiding curious spectators, until they arrived at a dilapidated edifice whose walls shouted stories from a bygone period. Marco's pulse accelerated as he inserted a set of keys, given to him in confidence by one of Amelia's trusted operatives, into a battered lock. The door creaked open, revealing a chamber that retained remnants of its past grandeur, heavy draperies, elaborate chandeliers, and a desk stacked high with dusty ledgers. Among these remnants, visibly hidden behind other banal paperweights and forgotten papers, was a huge file designated simply by an insignia that triggered a terrible familiarity in Marco's thoughts. Sophia cautiously picked up the file in this tense atmosphere. Johnny kept an eye on Marco as he flipped through the pages, noting the meticulous redactions and additions scribbled in a hasty handwriting. Every page appeared to throb with the potential to reveal long-buried secrets. "This is it," Marco said quietly, a mix of triumph and fear in his voice. This is what they were after. The documents contained names, dates, and transactions that, if made public, had the potential to bring down entire corrupt networks. However, this unexpected proof was not without its risks. A sudden commotion from outside disturbed the delicate peace that had settled over the group. The sound of rapid footsteps followed by hushed whispers indicated that someone had discovered their covert operation. Their hearts racing in tandem, they hastily tucked the paperwork in Marco's jacket and darted out through the back entrance. The chase that followed was a perilous dance through abandoned streets in the dim glare of the moonlight. Shadows extended and mingled in the dim light as unknown pursuers attempted to steal the proof that may swing the balance of power. With adrenaline running through their veins, Marco, Sophia, and Johnny engaged in a tight game of cat and mouse, depending on fast wits and innate knowledge of Bellevue's alleyways. Every small curve and shadowed corner seemed to carry whispers of peril, as if the night itself conspired against them. They once eluded capture by hiding into a small chapel, where the antique wooden benches absorbed their frantic whispers. However, in the shelter of that sacred area, time seemed to pause, providing a momentary respite from the chase. Marco's thoughts raced as he weighed the gravity of their mission. One incorrect move and the meticulously crafted puzzle of evidence would be gone forever, a casualty in the unceasing struggle against corruption that thrived in the darkest corners of power. After what seemed like an eternity of clashing footsteps and desperate hideaways, the trio managed to escape their pursuers and return to La Cucinabella, where a hushed meeting with Emilia had been scheduled. She waited for them quietly in a secure location in the back of the restaurant, away from prying eyes and opportunistic ears. Emilia listened closely as Marco narrated every detail of their adventure, her look conveying both somber appreciation and a sense of responsibility. "The file is in our possession," he continued, placing it on a polished oak table as if it were a priceless artifact. "Everything we've ever worked for, every piece of evidence that could help us bring justice to those who abuse their power, is here." Emilia examined the file, her eyes deepening with hope and trepidation. "This information," she mumbled, "has the potential to completely change the balance of power. But it is also a double-edged sword. If it falls into the wrong hands, it has the potential to unleash disaster." The responsibility of protecting that fragile thread of possibility was huge. At that point, the weight of their collective fates collided, binding Marco, Sofia, Johnny, Emilia, Lucio, and Selina in a pact forged by necessity and sealed by authenticity. In the days that followed, tensions rose as clandestine agents and high-ranking officials became aware of an impending disruption. Rumors spread like wildfire through the corridors of power, reaching those whose interests are vested in maintaining the status quo. Meanwhile, Marco was transformed by the turmoil of recent events. The restaurant, which had previously been a symbol of his own pride, now served as a refuge for revolutionaries, a barrier against corruption's insidious tendrils. Guests who had previously arrived for a casual supper now murmured coded messages to one another, their talks infused with the secret language of expectation and disobedience. Even the ambience, which was previously defined simply by the aromatic blend of herbs and simmering sauces, developed an undercurrent of urgency and purpose. As Marco embarked on this voyage of redemption, he came to reconcile with his past mistakes and the ignorance that had caused him to reject a couple whose actions were motivated by something far more serious than a lapse in gastronomic satisfaction. His transition was neither rapid nor simple. Night after night, he struggled with remorse, guilt, and the terror of what his next acts would entail. Despite his doubts, he found solace in his staff's unwavering support and the unexpected friendships that grew throughout the upheaval. Sophia's persistent optimism, Johnny's steadfast courage, and Emilia's quiet pragmatism acted as beacons of hope, guiding him through the storm of uncertainties with solid hands. In one pivotal moment that Marco will never forget, he ran across Lucio again, not in the sterile confines of a government conference or the faceless corridors of a safe house, but in the most unexpected place, a community center hosting a charity dinner. The air was filled with laughter and the smells of freshly made bread as people from all walks of life came together to support a local cause. Marco, who was there as a gesture of compassion and redemption, unexpectedly caught paths with Lucio in a moment of calm reflection near a table heaped with simple dishes. Their eyes met, and in that moment, there was an acknowledgement of common sufferings, secret desires, and the quiet assurance that justice, however delayed, would eventually triumph. Lucio gave a slight nod of thanks, his countenance a mix of forgiveness and understanding. "We are all flawed," he mumbled, the words carrying the weight of knowledge and the understanding that no one was immune to error, but it is in our efforts to mend those errors that we forge our true legacy. That encounter marked the start of an unexpected collaboration, one in which Marco not only transformed his restaurant into a haven for truth-seekers, but also grew into a man willing to risk everything for a cause greater than himself. The records they now protected were the focal point of a long-term campaign targeted at exposing the wrongdoing that had gone unchecked in the halls of power for far too long. Each document, like pieces of a massive puzzle scattered across the country, had clues that, when connected, promised to reveal decades of illegal dealings that had maintained the oppressive status quo. But each action was loaded with danger. There were dark forces lurking in the background, shadowy characters with vested interests who would stop at nothing to keep this reality hidden beneath layers of deception. Marco, Sofia, Johnny, Emilia, Lucio, and Selena began to plan the final approach for disseminating important information in secret meetings under the cover of night. They weighed logistical obstacles against the constant prospect of espionage and betrayal. Each decision was carefully calculated. During these conversations, Marco found himself musing on how a single act of impetuous frustration had become the catalyst for a revolution he could not have predicted. Over sips of black coffee and hurried whispers in darkened rooms, he reflected on the unchangeable lessons learned from his blunders. Acting on conscience rather than convenience involved both clear risk and wonderful beauty. The restaurant, which was formerly known solely for its culinary quality, now represents ideas of justice, resilience, and the power of redemption. Days turned into weeks, and as the campaign gained traction, rumors of suspicious break-ins, anonymous emails, and covert financial transfers spread via local media. La Cucina Bella was becoming known not only for its exquisite pasta and powerful wines, but also for a revived spirit that challenged tradition. Regular customers began to notice small changes: covert meetings held behind closed doors, new symbols discreetly scratched onto napkins and menus, and a growing sense of solidarity among those who visited the restaurant. The walls appeared to pulse with an energy that was equal parts hope and defiance. Encouraged by the transforming environment, Marco decided to throw a public event, a supper that would serve as a covert rallying cry for change. Invitations were sent out to a limited group of people who had long been persistent campaigners for openness and justice, all under the cautious supervision of the covert organization. The evening of the event began with a strong sense of excitement and anticipation. The golden brightness of chandeliers combined with the somber light of expectation. Inside La Cucina Bella, meticulously set tables held candles that, when flickering, formed swirling shadows that resembled the delicate interplay of optimism and anxiety. In one corner of the restaurant, a modest projection screen displayed muted images of documents, charts, and redacted messages detailing the corruption exposed by the stolen data. The mood was electrifying, as if every heart beat in unison for the promise of a daybreak free of the dark grips of unbridled power. As the guests mingled, exchanging hushed glances and knowing smiles, Marco stepped to a small platform, his voice steady but laced with the raw intensity of a man who had come to accept his redemption. "We are gathered here tonight not only to enjoy a meal, but also to bear witness to the truth," he told the silent crowd. "I stand before you, flawed and repentant, trying to make apologies for my past mistakes. In our hands, we have the power to reshape our society, to rebuild trust and integrity in the institutions that govern our lives." His words echoed throughout the packed room, inspiring a silent vow among those present, that courage and conviction would always triumph over the temptations of compromise and apathy. Following his rousing speech, the evening unfolded as a series of passionate talks, shared memories, and subtle glances passed by those who realized they were a part of something far bigger than themselves. Lucio, standing silently by Marco's side, spoke with a group of former colleagues who had long been disillusioned by the widespread corruption they witnessed on a daily basis. Meanwhile, Selena, ever elusive but undoubtedly present, weaved her way through the crowd, giving each person a gentle reassurance that they were not battling alone. The meal evolved into a symposium of ideas and plans, where the seeds of transformation were sown with each whispered word and clandestine handshake. As the night came to a conclusion, Emilia approached Marco with a soft smile. "You have done well," she replied quietly, her eyes showing both thanks and the weight of anticipation. "Tonight, countless lives have been affected by the truth we protect. You've turned your mistake into an opportunity for growth. As long as there is a spark of courage and a resolve to change, our goal will thrive." Marco, overcome with a sense of purpose he had never known, recognized that this trip was far from over. It was an eternal war against nefarious powers that thrived on secrecy and manipulation. However, enchanted by the flickering candlelight and the determined faces around him, he felt prepared to accept the uncertain journey ahead. In the months that followed, the movement led by Marco and his newfound allies gained momentum. Carefully orchestrated information leaks progressively began to dismantle long-standing power relationships. Investigative journalists, emboldened by the cascading discoveries, pursued every lead with the unwavering drive of individuals who had been disenfranchised for far too long. The community, which had hitherto been hushed and restrained, became loud and demanding, clamoring for greater accountability from those who believed themselves above blame. Marco's restaurant became a symbol of the uprising, serving not only wonderful food but also sowing and nurturing the seeds of hope. Of course, each new morning brought new problems and unknown perils. Government agents became concerned about the growing momentum of the exposés and sought to apply pressure. Anonymous threats and veiled warnings appeared at La Cucinabella, aiming to intimidate not just Marco but also the thriving network of truth-seekers he had helped establish. However, with each hurdle, the group's commitment became stronger. Sophia, whose soft demeanor belied her inner strength, took on new tasks, ensuring that every aspect of the restaurant was secure while still friendly to those seeking refuge and sanctuary within its doors. Johnny, with his youthful optimism and technological skills, began to establish secure communication channels to ensure the confidentiality of information transmission. And Marco, ever introspective and increasingly wise, calmed his own nerves as he transformed from an ordinary restaurant owner to a steadfast defender of justice. In the months that followed the tragic supper, as new evidence emerged like an elaborate tapestry of truth, powerful figures were forced to answer for their actions. The local police, first skeptical of the flood of claims, quickly became embroiled in an investigation. Whispers became headlines, and soon national attention focused on Bellevue, a small town that became the unusual core of a profound ideological revolution. The file and its contents became increasingly important with each passing day, demonstrating that no institution, no matter how powerful, could withstand the continual grinding of truth and perseverance. As the transformative process gained momentum, the narrative began to shift. Marco's restaurant was no longer perceived just as an eatery that had fed an unscrupulous couple, rather, it was viewed as the heart of a community dedicated to the tireless pursuit of accountability. The events that began as a bitter incident grew into a multidimensional movement that transcended individual desires. They became a rallying cry for change in a culture where secrets and falsehoods had long reigned supreme. It was a testament to the human spirit, a shared willingness to rise above injustice and accept vulnerability in the pursuit of a better future. Then, on an unusually warm spring afternoon, as daily life in Bellevue continued to pulse with newfound optimism and quiet anticipation, a last twist occurred. Marco found himself alone in the serene warmth of early evening, sitting at one of the long wooden tables outside his restaurant, reflecting on how far they had all come. A subtle rustle behind him caused him to turn, and he was welcomed by a well-dressed man who approached with a measured, almost regretful grin. The stranger presented himself as Antonio Bellini, a senior official from a government oversight group entrusted with looking into the corruption that has plagued the establishment of power for decades. Antonio's arrival was not fortunate. He had been keeping an eye on the escalating events in Bellevue and was, in fact, Alessandro's former mentor, the same man whose departure had marked a bitter chapter in Marco's early career. Antonio confessed, in a voice dripping with hidden sympathy, that his goal was to thank Marco for unintentionally sparking a chain reaction that restored balance and responsibility in a system long tainted by greed and negligence. Your courage to admit your mistake has provided us with the evidence we needed to spark reform at the highest levels, Antonio remarked, his eyes beaming with implicit approval. It is now time to take the next step toward long-term change, and you, Mr. Donnelly, have a critical role to play in this new chapter. The revelation was overwhelming yet energizing. Marco's world, once confined to the rhythms of restaurant life, was now intertwined with the fate of an entire country. He accepted Antonio's proposal to collaborate in forming an independent body dedicated to ensuring openness and justice in government matters, alongside the network of passionate changemakers he had fostered in Bellevue. In the months that followed, coordinated efforts by Marco's group, Antonio's oversight committee, and numerous grassroots activists resulted in the announcement of a series of far-reaching reforms. The public hearings took place against the backdrop of a vibrant, united community that had long felt silenced by corruption. The leaked data became the foundation of legislative investigations, and with each accusation of wrongdoing, the dual narratives of struggle and redemption merged until they were inseparable. Marco's heart swelled with an emotion he had never felt before, the peaceful satisfaction of knowing that even a modest mistake, when addressed with integrity and passionate action, could blossom into a revolution that reverberated far beyond the walls of a single restaurant. Even as the tides of change rushed through the corridors of power, the personal journey of atonement continued unabated. Marco continued to confront the burdens of his past, frequently returning to the fateful night when he threw out the telltale couple, a moment that seemed insignificant at the time but was now permanently inscribed in his identity. In calm meditation, he learned that defects were not flaws to be overlooked, but rather threads in the rich tapestry of human experience. They were the very aspects that fueled growth, compassion, and transformation. Marco, with the help of Sofia, Johnny, Emilia, Lucio, Selena, and Antonio, took on the ever-changing position of a guardian, of truth, justice, and the enduring dignity of everyone who dared to defy the established quo. Several years later, on a similarly crisp fall evening, a formal ceremony was organized in Bellevue to mark the community's radical transformation. Guests from all walks of life gathered under the huge, starlit sky, united in their belief that the search of truth was the most honorable effort. Marco talked in his address not only as a man who had committed mistakes, but also as someone who had realized that each mistake was a stepping stone to a greater calling. Tonight, we celebrate the enduring strength of collective conscience rather than the victory of a single individual. We have learned that when we stand together, holding fast to the values of integrity and compassion, even a single act, no matter how small, can become a catalyst for change. His words echoed through the night, carrying with them the steadfast hope that honesty and perseverance would pave the way for a future in which justice reigned supreme. As the ceremony came to an end, each guest felt renewed, knowing that their sacrifices had not been in vain. Marco looked about at the faces illuminated by soft candlelight, faces altered by common sufferings, healed by a sense of purpose, and inspired to strive for a better tomorrow. In that quiet, reflective moment, he silently thanked fate for the chance encounter with a mysterious couple who, through their own contrived actions, set off a chain of events that obliterated the boundaries of his previously narrow existence and ushered him into a realm where mistakes became the womb of innovation and positive change. The restaurant, La Cucina Bella, has survived beyond its culinary foundations. It is a living witness to the power of second chances, the possibility that each blunder holds when confronted with a brave heart, and the quiet tenacity of those who refuse to accept a corrupted reality. It is a place where whispered secrets and bold statements weave together to form a tapestry of progress, a place where every meal served is a silent promise of resilience, and every corner serves as a reminder that hope continues even in the darkest hours. Now, as twilight fades into night and the once harrowing echoes of the past give way to a present defined by redemption and collective will, Marco, Sofia, Johnny, Emilia, Lucio, Selena, and all who participated in the Memorial of Truth are ready to build on the legacy they have created, a legacy of enduring inspiration that illuminates the path for future generations. This quiet success, gained through the synthesis of human mistake and unwavering integrity, gives us hope for the future. And, while the path may be filled with unexpected hurdles, once lit, the torch of truth burns eternally, bringing us through the darkness to the dawn of a just and compassionate world. In pondering on the long, winding path that began with the seemingly insignificant act of throwing out a pear, Marco realized that every twist and turn, every unexpected encounter, was both a lesson and a blessing. The faces that had previously irritated him had grown into a symbol of regeneration, a reminder that even in the midst of remorse, one may find the strength to change one's destiny, and potentially the fates of many others. The story of La Cucina Bella is more than just one of a restaurant owner's mistakes, it is also a saga of resilience, a story of human interconnectedness, and a chronicle of a community that dared to resist the forces of corruption and indifference. As the final embers of a transformative night flickered in the gentle evening breeze, the legacy of that fateful evening became inextricably linked to the very fabric of Bellevue, a testament to the enduring power of redemption, unity, and the unwavering conviction that even the smallest spark can ignite a conflagration of hope. With each sunrise that followed, the renewed sense of purpose at La Cucina Bella emphasized that the quest for truth and justice never truly stops. The story of that momentous night lived on in every hushed discussion, every secret exchange of information, every shared memory of loss and victory, reminding everyone who heard it that even in the midst of mistakes, there is always an opportunity to redefine one's path and construct a better tomorrow. Marco's journey stands out in this ever-changing narrative of life, where every decision has far-reaching implications. It serves as a reminder that redemption is not limited to a select few, but is available to anybody ready to face the consequences of their acts with honesty and humility. And while La Cucina Bella continues to serve not only meals but also purpose, every patron who walks through its doors is unintentionally encouraged to become a part of this continuous story, one in which hope and transformation are the true flavors that remain long after the final morsel is consumed. And so the legacy lives on, a legacy spawned from a fortuitous encounter on a peaceful Tuesday evening, a twist of fate that turned a restaurant owner's impulsive judgment into a call for revolution. Every word, every whispered chat in the gentle shadows of La Cucina Bella tells of the unwavering spirit of individuals who dare to oppose injustice, as well as the truth that even the smallest mistake, when met with sincere resolution, can develop into a narrative of hope that inspires future generations. This is the story of how an unfortunate turn of events in a simple restaurant setting sparked a movement, a story of mistakes and redemption, impulsive actions, and the journey to atone for them, and, ultimately, the unbreakable bonds that form when ordinary people band together for an extraordinary cause. It's a live story that reminds us that every ending is a new beginning, every mistake is a chance, and every heart has the power to inspire change. The adventure continues as the lights inside La Cucina Bella dwindle at the end of each day, just to be reignited with the flames of hope and determination the next day. In those flickering shadows, the story endures, a 9,000-word record of human weakness, redemption, and the remarkable ability of togetherness to transform lives and reshape destinies. May it serve as a reminder that, even in the darkest of times, a single spark of conscience can light the way to a more equitable and compassionate society.